and she becomes more and more demanding with him, that she insists more and more that he satisfy her wants. She becomes much, as it were, the man of the relationship. Flaubert can write very powerfully about that. One paragraph, she undressed brutally, ripping off the thin laces of her corset so violently that they would whistle around her hips like a gliding snake. She would let her clothes fall at once to the ground, then pale and serious, without a word, she would throw herself against his breast with a long shudder. I mean, it almost has a sickly dimension, a kind of desperate pathological dimension to it. And soon enough, this also runs its course, and she realizes, I quote, every smile concealed a yawn of boredom, every joy a curse, every pleasure its own disgust, and the sweetest kisses left upon your lips only the unattainable desire for a greater delight. This then would be the punishment that's meted out to passion and desire. The worst thing that you can do to desire is to satisfy it, because it can't be satisfied. There's almost a systolic diastolic in what I just read to you. Smile conceals a yawn of boredom. Joy hides a curse. Pleasure brings its own disgust. This is almost mechanical. To use a French term, it's the machine infernale, the infernal machine of passion itself. There is no ultimate satisfaction in this. Emma Bovary's desire for gratification cannot be ultimately fulfilled. The book closes with her suicide via poison. She's been on a treadmill, that the great quest for romance and fulfillment is doomed. And yet the book is great because it gives us so many perspectives on this. One perspective that it doesn't give us, but that I want to give us, is to see this in the context of other 19th century novels that are also about the tragic quest for love on the part of women. I'm thinking of Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, which is very parallel to Madame Bovary, although it is not surgical. It's not cold in the same way. But it's, I think, a very rich story about a woman's desire, not that she seeks, as Emma does, but she runs into, is shocked by a romance and cannot say no to it, and steps across the line and will be destroyed by it. Or Ibsen's play Hedda Gabler, which is a really almost neurotic case study of a woman who is suffering the boredom of marriage with a man who, of course, is even more boring than you could imagine, much more so than Charles Bovary. But think of a novel like Kate Chopin's The Awakening. The 19th century is filled with books where women have no other course, it seems. They have no professional possibilities. They have no social avenues. And so love would seem to be the only route, the doomed route, according to Flaubert, for some form of self-enactment, some form of gratification. Emma Bovary is in a text that is sacrificial. It reveals the dead end of the cult of feeling. In fact, when Emma is pregnant, she hopes that her child will be a boy so that he will have power. She has a girl. And yet, it's worth remembering, she commits suicide ultimately, not just because of love problems, but because of money problems. And I haven't talked about that intentionally. She is in hock to the village's shopkeeper, Monsieur Lheureux, who constantly plies her with clothing and furnishings that come from Paris, to sort of stoke her fantasies, her desires. She gets further and further into debt. She becomes more and more ingenious in finding ways to use her husband's money to pay some of these bills, some, because the bills continue to mount higher and higher, and finally Lheureux calls the debt, and she's desperate. Where is she going to get this money? And she tries to borrow it from Rodolphe, who doesn't give it to her. He claims that he doesn't have it. This is the part of the novel where we begin to realize that it's not just the books that you read that may give you ideas of romance, but it's also the clothes that you buy, the fashion magazines that you know about, the fantasies that you have about what constitutes the seductive, elegant life of style. All of that is what desire is also about. In other words, the marketplace is in this book. This is why this is a modern book as well. The marketplace helps to create our appetites. Well, the novel doesn't close only with her death. It closes with this weird, rather distasteful sort of duel, conversational duel between the major antagonist, Homais, the pharmacist, and the curé, the priest. And it's where Flaubert stages a kind of dialogue or debate between religion on the one hand and science on the other. And Flaubert is equally disgusted with both because he thinks both are utterly cliched, both have a kind of monomaniacal picture of the world. And you begin to wonder, well, what are the enemies of desire? One of them might be the cold scientific attitude of the pharmacist. One of them would be the restrictions of the church. And one of them might be life itself. Thank you.